Take a fast trip to Fresno this morning.
Okie doke. Well, we will, at my clock, one clock says 1 o'clock, the other one says 1:01. So we are going to, we're going to try to start this meeting on time. Thank you for everybody that showed up. We are going to go through a PowerPoint presentation first, and then we'll have question and answer at the end. We're going to try to record this and make it available on the website for afterwards. Obviously, financial officers change within your chapter, so if you want to go back and review it with others, this is a good course, hopefully, for your general membership to know. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your Saturday, and we'll commence. First thing we have here is just a little bit of housekeeping. You can place your questions in the chat window. It should be over to the right-hand side. If you're in a view and your my PowerPoint presentation is taking up your whole page, you can, at the drop down at the top, change your view options, and you'll be able to see participants or the chat window over to the side. You can put your questions in there, and we'll try to kind of glance through those at the end and catch those. Obviously, if questions arise later, you're always welcome to email me at financechair@bluestarmothers.us or the financial secretary, Jen Schindler. She's on this call as well, at finsec@bluestarmothers.us. And Diana Vance is our host today, and she can be reached at trez@bluestarmothers.us. Without further ado, what we're going to cover today is just an overview of financial policies and best practices. We'll touch on the IRS regs and Blue Star Mother financial policies. We've got a responsibility to live up to both of those. The IRS regs are a little bit less detailed, but we do have to make sure that we stay exempt. Then we'll touch on reimbursements, and finally we'll go into annual compliance before we hit the question and answer period. Just a word of caution here, if you see me bouncing around, I'm on a balance board, so don't worry about me. I'm moving around here. Okay, IRS regs and financial policies. Obviously, abiding by the IRS rules and regulations for nonprofits is going to be the main thrust of what we need to do to keep our exempt status. There are videos, frequently asked questions, and courses available on the IRS website. If you go to stayexempt.irs.gov, you can find those. They're very helpful. They're very topic specific, so it'll give you examples of what you need to look out for or avoid. The two major things we're going to hit here today is just no lobbying or candidate endorsements. Best practice is stay out of political activities. Now I say that, and everything these days seems to be politicized, so be very careful. Mainly what I'm talking about is, one, you're not going to have your Blue Star Mothers as a chapter participate in campaigning, in political fundraising, that type of thing. That being said, you may find yourself at different events or rallies or whatever that have a strong veteran presence. They also have a strong political presence, that type of thing. That may be true. You may end up with your local Republican women's group, wanting to contribute to you, and that's fine. The main thing is, do not participate jointly in a fundraising activity or anything like that. You're not going to be doing endorsements for any particular candidate. Make sure if you're wearing your Blue Star Mother shirt or your Blue Star Mother pin that you don't make any political statements. Also, you cannot use any chapter funds to benefit any specific individual or member. That being said, what you want to do is you want to identify a program, not a person. Now, some people are going to say, we have the funds, and there's this veteran who he just got evicted from his home, and we want to help him move, and we want to buy him some furniture. He just needs a dining room table and maybe a couch, and a bed. And, you know, bless your hearts, that's a worthy cause, but it's not something that the Blue Star Mother chapter can take, you know, can undertake. What you need to do is you need to identify a program. If in your budgeting for the year, you want to have, say, set aside $1,000 and just make it available to where we are going to buy 40 $25 Walmart gift cards, and we are going to make them available to the first 40 homeless veterans in our community that that we come across, or whatever. That's a program, okay? It's not targeted for any specific homeless veteran. Oftentimes we'll end up with maybe even some of our children that come back from deployments and they're facing financial difficulty till they get their reimbursements back and that type of thing. It would be nice, but it's not going to be allowed as a nonprofit for you to help any one person's specific child in dealing with what they're going through in the military or as a veteran. Some people will legalistically take that so far as to say, well, how is it then that we can send a care package to our children with chapter resources? The point is, when you are building a care package program within your chapter, the sources of the names that you're going to be sending those care packages to is obviously going to be deployed, some of which will be your sons and daughters. Ideally, it will also be your sons and daughters, their comrades, other people from the community, maybe co-workers, that type of thing. And what you will do is you will just say, we're going to do a care packing party in July. We're looking for a list of names, depending on how many names we come up with. We've got funds to send 80 packages. If you come up with 40 names, each name gets 2 packages, and you send them off. Obviously, your children will share with their buddies. It's not a benefit for any specific person or member. And we can discuss that later in the question and answer if you still need clarification on that. The next item basically takes it beyond the IRS regs and takes it into us as an organization. Internally, we have financial policies. These are adopted each year by the convention body and approved. We constantly are making revisions to them. So if you got information in prior years and you think it's a little bit different, just please check the most current financial policies on the website and email one of the finance officers or myself to get clarification. The basic guidelines are there's only 3 signers on your chapter bank account: the treasurer, the financial secretary, and the first VP for emergency purposes only. Now, this does not give you license to have the treasurer and first VP handling all of the check writing, okay? It really needs to be the treasurer and the financial secretary, and only in emergency purposes that first VP signs. Also, the treasurer and financial secretary are the only 2 members of your chapter that are authorized to have a debit card. Every check needs to have 2 signatures. This may seem a little bit cumbersome, but it is necessary, and believe me, it protects you, okay? We didn't put these financial policies in place to be restrictive or controlling. We put them in place to protect you. All you have to do is open up the news or look on the internet, and you see various controversies and disgrace on various nonprofits throughout our nation where people embezzled funds and that type of thing. And what these type of practices protect you against is being accused of that, okay? You haven't done anything wrong. You don't intend to do anything wrong. Anybody can start a rumor, but if you're following financial practices, it's really easy to dispel those rumors and say, no, I don't do anything personally. It always has a second signature. We get our reimbursement forms, you know, whatever, that type of thing. So these policies are in place for your protection to keep your name clean as a financial officer of your chapter. If you're on here just as a member for informational purposes, this will give you a little bit of insight into the practices that your financial officers adhere to, so that you know you can trust what you're seeing on your financial statements, and the information they're giving you has been vetted, and it goes through a policy and procedure. It's not just being done willy-nilly.
Julie,
Yes.
Brenda chatted something, and I think it probably needs to be interjected here.
Okay.
She says, I believe chapter checks need to have the chapter state and number as well as the chapter name on them.
Yes, that's on the next slide.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay, so e-checks, the part with both signatures, when you're writing a physical check, you need to hand it or mail it to the other officer so that they can sign it, they can review the receipt that you received, and then they can send it on to who needs to be paid. E-checks, both signers must document that they authorize the transaction. Now, if this is by email, that's fine. That will print it out, put it in your files. It's documentation. You know, I'm going to be purchasing $100 worth of stamps. The financial secretary says that's fine. I understand we need it for the, you know, the next mailing. Keep track of that email that the financial officer knew that the treasurer was using an e-check to purchase the stamps, that type of thing. Same thing with bill pay. There are some chapters who have regular monthly expenses, such as a storage unit, or I can't think of, maybe rent for a space that they're meeting in. But both officers need to be aware of, and the documentation has to show that they authorize this monthly bill pay to be done out of chapter funds. And then no credit cards in the chapter name. You're not going to, particularly something like a PayPal account, oftentimes will offer a credit card. Do not get that. There is no liability that can be traced to any one particular person. So do not have a credit card in the chapter name. Also, we have checks have to contain the chapter state and number. So even if you need to handwrite that in because your checks don't say that yet, that's fine. Just put in NV number 3 or whatever it is up in the top section of your check with the address, and that will designate it to who you're paying, that it is coming from your chapter funds. Bank statements should be mailed to the permanent mailing address of the chapter, and that matches what's on file during your annual compliance, not someone's home address. That being said, online bank account access is almost a must these days. Particularly during COVID, it was difficult for sometimes people to get out. Sometimes the financial officers don't live near each other. Maybe they're not near the permanent PO box of the chapter, that type of thing. You want to be able to have your online access so you can make sure that you get those statements and you know what's going on with the bank account. The financial secretary, her responsibilities are to record the monies received and make the deposits. The treasurer, her responsibility is to draft the checks once proper documentation has been received, and she forwards it to the financial secretary for signature, for second signature. This is a separation of duties. Again, it's a protection measure to make sure no one person has control over the money coming in and the money going out. Chapter presidents are not financial officers, especially when a chapter is new and it's small. Everybody kind of wears multiple hats, but there needs to be a delineation of responsibilities. And you have got to have your chapter president, your first VP, your financial secretary, your treasurer, and your recording secretary. You've got to have 5 women that can fill those positions so that those responsibilities are delineated and no one person has control of the chapter. That being said, there are going to be times when you have events, and maybe it's something that the chapter president needs to go make a small presentation, and next thing you know, they're providing her with funds, or they pass the hat and they collect funds and they're giving it to her, and she's standing there like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this. The thing is, you can take it, as any member could. Take those funds, put them in a sealed, count them, put them in a sealed envelope right on the outside. There should be this much money in here, date it, initial it, and then get it to your financial secretary as soon as possible, so that it can be deposited. A lot of times it's just a matter of common sense. You don't want somebody to come up and go, oh, how come I didn't get a thank you note for that $200 donation I gave over the weekend to at the community coffee thing? And everybody goes, what $200 donation? And, you know, a member looks at somebody else and goes, they only gave me $100. So you don't want that type of controversy and difficulty to come up. So just keep things nice and clean. Never write a check out to cash. It needs to be to an accountable Blue Star mother. Okay, if you're getting ready to do an event, you're going to have inventory sales, or you're going to be collecting things. It's a bunco, it's a bingo, it's, you know, whatever, and you need petty cash for the event. Don't write the check out to cash. Write it out to whatever mom is going to be handling the money at the event, preferably the treasurer or the secretary, and have them go cash it, and then they will make an accounting of the money when they turn everything back in. Okay. Reconcile all bank accounts monthly. This is your checking account, your savings account, your PayPal account. If you take monies in off of Square, you need to make sure that you've got a printout of what transactions will run through Square, so that you can track that into your account to make sure you got all of those funds. Sometimes some chapters early on, when they set up PayPal accounts, set them up in the name. Oh, it's like one of the members will have set it up for a specific event, or maybe a chapter president. Look at those accounts and make sure that they are at the email address of your chapter, and not a specific person's name. Okay, and maybe this is a good time to make a plug for get your financial officers and any of your board officers to use the bluestarmothers.us email address that's available through our national website. If you need help with that, you can talk to, I believe, our webmaster, first VP, fourth VP, whatever. They can get you in touch with that. There's a president at bluestarmothers.us, there's FinSec, there's Trez, there's first 1 VP, 2 VP, 3 VP. And what that does is it's a Gmail address account, but it's standardized. And then all you need to do is, from year to year, as officers change, you merely pass that email address access along to the new officer. That way you've got your history, that way you've got access to accounts. When you're setting up online access to banks and that type of thing, it stays tied to the FinSec or the Trez email addresses, and not, you know, Betty Jones at yahoo.com. It's difficult to go in and change those. The banks don't appreciate you having to change it. So if you get it set up with one of those standardized ones, it works a lot easier. You also need to provide your membership with the detailed financial information quarterly at a minimum. So that means at least 4 times a year. Best practice is just provide it to them monthly. If you look on the national website, there are samples of financial statements. The main thing your membership needs to know, we want to have the transparency, is how much money did we start out the month with? What monies did we receive and who did they come from? What money did we spend and where did it go and why? And then how much money do we have left over at the end? That's basically what you're going to be dispensing information-wise. It can take on various forms, but make sure that that's available. This is not the board's money, it's your chapter's money. So all of the members have a right to know what money came in and what money went out, who authorized it and where it went. Also, as financial officers, please be present at your chapter meetings, whether this is Zoom, phone call, whatever. During COVID, it was a little bit difficult. Not all people wanted to come in on Zoom. You could phone in. Even if you can't do that, please be available via text or phone in case your members have a question regarding the financial information when they're meeting at their general membership. Budgets, you need to have one every year. It doesn't have to be elaborate. There are budgeting PowerPoint slides on the website. I want to say, let me look at something here real quick. If we go to, I think it's, I was looking to see if I could spot it. Yeah. If you go to, let me put this over here. If you go to the bluestarmothers.org website and go to files, BSMA files, and you look down here, there's a lot of documents here, our charter, everything you may need for grant applications, that type of stuff. We have a nonprofit budgeting made easy. That'll be a PowerPoint presentation that was made back in 2018. You'll also find over here in chapter resources, I believe is where we have, maybe it's under forms. Get familiar with your website. A couple things have moved around a little bit. There are forms available.
Julie, look under financial.
That should be right there. That's probably the right place to look. Yes, there we go. This is the samples of various chart of accounts, profit and loss statement, reimbursement forms, that type of thing that you could use for your chapter. So again, that's on your website over here on the right side, the link under financial. Okay. Use your reimbursement forms. Make sure it's a budgeted item or an approved expense before cutting a check. It's real easy for Sally to show up with a little receipt in hand and say, here, I need, I bought this, I was told to go buy this, and I need to be reimbursed. So as you show up at your meetings, have one of the reimbursement forms on hand. Just hand it to her and ask her to fill it out. If you direct your members to the website, actually, what you'll see, that reimbursement form, it's a PDF fillable form, and you can set it up and it can be mailed wherever it needs to be mailed. They can just automatically check what they need to do, fill out the form, who does the check need to be made to, that type of thing. And then you've got a place for your financial secretary and your treasurer or the president to approve the expenditure that, yes, it's part of your budget. And that way you'll have all your documentation that you need. Let me get over here to a couple of things, terms that come up that you're going to want to make sure that you're aware of. Restricted versus unrestricted funds. The donor decides if they're restricting their funds for use, not the chapter. Okay, you may get in a big $500 donation for something, and the members talk about, oh, this will be great, we're going to earmark this for whatever. And the thing is, you can designate in your budget that we want to have a program or a service or a benefit for veterans or something to the tune of like $500, and your justification is, we just got in this $500 donation. But the chapter does not tie those two together. It's only the donor that could say, this is $500 and it's to be used for postage for your care packages. Then you need to make sure that you keep track of it separately. And the next time you do a care packing party and you only spend $400 in postage, you are not allowed to take the extra $100 and use it for supplies. The donor specified this is to be used for postage for your care packages. So the thing is, you want to make sure that your donors are specific if they are saying, I want these funds earmarked. There are certain chapters that will do fundraising for convention. They need to advertise that clearly, saying we're Blue Star Moms. Our organization is governed by a national convention each year, and we would like to fundraise to get our delegates back to convention and not use our normal chapter funds, which are for military and veteran support, for this. And you will have various sponsorships that come up and say, this is to get your delegates to convention. Those are restricted funds. Just keep track of them and make sure that you use them for the restricted purpose. Also, in your financial statements, please do not use the term miscellaneous or reimbursement, okay? You can do that with your household checkbook if you want to, but you're dealing with somebody else's money here, okay? You're dealing with the chapter's money, and miscellaneous and reimbursement are not descriptive terms of what the money was spent for. It needs to be a specific. Was it supplies for the care packages? Was it boxes? Was it tablecloths for the event? Was a mom told to go pick up the coffee and tea that's going to be served at our Gold Star Mothers service? If so, it's coffee and tea or supplies for the Gold Star program, not reimbursement to Mary Jones. So just be sure that you clarify the income and expense for what it really is. Also, develop a method to keep track of the value of your in-kind donations. Oftentimes, chapters will receive donations of supplies to go in the care packages. You'll get toothbrushes, toothpaste, you'll get Girl Scout cookies, you'll get Boy Scout popcorn, all sorts of things that you're going to pack into those boxes. So at the end of the year, when you're trying to look at the total picture of what did our chapter do, you're not going to say, we had $800 in postage to send out 60, I don't know, 120 care packages. The true picture is we received maybe $4,500 in donations. We got hand warmers, we've got beef jerky sticks, we have Girl Scout cookies, we have batteries. And the thing is, you're going to, when you take these donations in, somebody needs to sit down and look at them and say, wow, what's the value of this donation? If somebody gave us cash instead and we had to go buy these things, how much would it have cost us? And so you merely put down in-kind donations. This is how much came in, and assign a value to it. If you want to keep a list and evaluate the entire thing at the end of the year when you get ready to do your final accounting and your annual compliance, that's fine. That may be a little bit overwhelming. I would suggest that you do it as the donations come in. Also, in regard to your financial statements, your groupings of your expenses and your income, try to keep them in categories such as donations and support. That's real clear. That's going to be individual donations. That's going to be you're at an event. Maybe you're at a motorcycle ride and you've got a booth sitting there and people just come up and put money in. Okay. Maybe a corporation sends you a check. Maybe someone does CFC or United Way payroll deductions, and you get that check in the mail. Okay, that's outside donations and support that are coming to you. That's opposed to actual fundraising that you did. If you're doing, if you're raffling off quilts, if you're holding a golf tournament, if you're doing a spaghetti feed, those are fundraising events. And you're going to want to see, was this worth our effort? Was this the beneficial? What benefit did we have from this event? Was it all work, or did we end up with a lot of money coming in as a result of that? Separately, you're going to have your programs. You may have certain things that really don't have hardly any income coming in, but they do have expenses because that's the mission of your chapter. When it comes to sending care packages, assisting in Gold Star Mother, Gold Star family events, memorial events, that type of thing. Maybe assisting at a cemetery when you're redoing landscaping. You could have additional programs, like I mentioned before, for homeless veterans in the community, that type of thing. Those are things that are mainly going to be expenses going out, not necessarily funds coming in, but you will have grouped them to say, this is a worthwhile project. This is what we want to do with our funds. And these are the expenses that were associated with it, as opposed to your normal postage, operating supplies, rent, storage, that type of thing. And also some of your membership. You will have your membership dues come in. Go ahead and keep those if you want to classify them separately. If you do have a membership development drive, maybe you've got an opportunity to go to your recruiters' offices and hand out brochures to the new recruits and their families as they come in and say, moms, your kid's taking off for boot camp. We understand, here's a brochure, that type of thing. Those would be like membership development type expenses. So you can understand why categorizing those and clarifying them might be helpful. Best practices, ideally, you could do all this by hand, but if you take advantage of TechSoup.org, it's a nonprofit platform that coordinates providing different types of software to nonprofits. They have a reduced cost license for a variety of software. You can get your Windows 10, you can get your Microsoft applications, but most importantly, you can get QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. QuickBooks is probably the easiest accounting program that you're going to find that's going to be comprehensive enough to keep track of your expenses. It does have online training. There's numerous people within our own organization that are proficient in QuickBooks. So you could ask for guidance on getting your chapter set up. It just makes things a lot easier. It produces your reports for you. It has a reconciliation feature that walks you right through reconciling your bank accounts. And I think you'd be very pleased with it if you're still trying to do things by hand. A word of caution: when you register with TechSoup, use a Blue Star Mother chapter officer email address, okay? Because that account needs to stay with the chapter. So at this point, it probably wouldn't matter which chapter officer. It could be a president, a treasurer, financial secretary, maybe even the recording secretary. But whoever goes in to set up that TechSoup account, make sure it's a chapter officer email address. That'll make it a lot easier, and you won't end up with, over 10 years, 6 different TechSoup accounts. If you are using QuickBooks Online, you can set your various viewing or access permissions. In other words, you can put your president down as a user with only viewing access, so that she can see what's going on in there, but she's not going to accidentally click on something and change it or move it and go, oh, I didn't realize that's what I did. Your treasurer and your financial officers can have full access to that online platform. On to reimbursements. And again, if you've got questions over that part, please put it in the chat and we'll try to address those in a general nature here at the end. When it comes to reimbursements, what can members be reimbursed for? And again, I would point you back to the reimbursement form that you can find on the national website. It'll have date of purchase, amount, description, reason, include your receipt with the form, who to mail it to, that type of thing. A member can be reimbursed for budgeted and pre-approved purchases of supplies and other chapter related expenses. Please make sure, ladies, that your moms do not get in the habit of going out, seeing a great deal and saying, oh, this would be great for the chapter, buying it, showing up at the meeting and saying, here, I need to be reimbursed, okay? They've got it backwards. I know their intentions are well, but whatever members are buying needs to have been discussed ahead of time and approved. Some with convention coming up here in August, I would just point out that some convention delegate expenses are allowed. Now, I highlighted delegate, and what I mean by that is your chapter needs to designate who is going to be a delegate for your chapter at convention. Your president can go to convention and she is not included in your delegate count. You get one delegate for every 10 members or portion thereof. So if you have 26 members in your chapter, you are allowed 3 delegates plus your president, but you need to, in one of your meetings, it needs to be recorded in the minutes, that we recognize that these 4 people are going to convention and they are chapter president, and these 3 will be designated as delegates. Make sure that that delegate selection is done by your chapter. I don't care if you guys do it a raffle or a lottery or whatever, but it's not something that the president gets to pick and choose who gets to go, that type of thing. If you do have the funds set aside in your budget to help the delegates offset their expense, since this is official BSMA business, it's the only way we can govern ourselves, then your delegates can be reimbursed for reasonable travel to and from the convention site. That includes their airfare and the shuttle to and from the airport. They can be reimbursed for their delegate registration fee. Usually we will have like a luncheon and or a banquet that is all inclusive of that convention registration fees. In other words, you cannot separate out that meal expense. So in that case, the meal cost is included in there. But if there are separate meals or whatever that are purchased, those are on the individual. They are not a delegate expense that's reimbursable by the chapter. You can also reimburse your delegates lodging at the convention hotel for up to 6 nights, double occupancy. And there is no per diem reimbursements allowed, okay? In the financial policies, those are available on the website as well. You can read through them. You will see an actual automobile transportation reimbursement plan, which basically explains how it is you would be reimbursed if you drove to convention. But it's not a per diem type arrangement. The get to the right place here. Annual compliance. The things that you're going to need to look for as soon after August 31st as possible is pull together your statement of income, your donations and support, and expense that outlines all your payments and disbursements for the entire fiscal year, September 1 to August 31st. You may be a new chapter, maybe you started up mid-year. That doesn't matter. You're going to have August 31st as a year end regardless. You may have a short year that first year. From there on out, it will always be September 1 through August 31st. You want to include copies of all pages of your bank statements, every bank statement, front and back, even if it's blank. The very first page of your statement will say like page 1 of 7. When we only get 1 or 2 pages, or we get 3 pages, then it's kind of, oh no, what are we missing here? The thing is, what is required in the annual compliance is a profit and loss statement, a statement of income and expense, okay? We have not been asking for a balance sheet. So the pages of your bank statement is the only thing that tells us what cash was available to the chapter at the end of the year, at the end of the year. That being said, you're going to have your checking accounts, your savings accounts. PayPal is going to look a little odd, but it does have statements, activity statements now, and you can present that as well, download it from online, and include that with your annual compliance. You want to file your Chapter 990 EZ or Form 990 with the IRS, okay? Now, normally that is the 15th month of the 15th of the 5th month. So for us, that would be January 15th, but BSMA compliance requires it be done by December 1st, even though the IRS due date is later. So please be aware of that. The main thing is you get your statement of income and expense together, you talk to your other chapter officers, you find out the events you did, and you go online and you file the 990, and then you do the rest of your compliance. The bank signer's letter is also required in compliance. There is an example of that as well on the BSMA website. It is for the president of the chapter to complete and submit. This just confirms that I have seen that our financial secretary, our treasurer, and our first VP are the only 3 signers on the bank account.
Julie, I'm sorry, I'm driving and I can't raise my hand or type in the chat. It's Brenda.
Yes.
I do want to mention that the bank statements, they have to be in one file. You cannot upload 3 separate files because one will overwrite the other. So
Very
it has
good
to
point.
be all inclusive of one file.
Okay, very good point. So when you're doing your annual compliance, just put all of your bank statements together. You may have to, run copies, whatever, if your scanner doesn't do 2-sided, put all of your bank statements together and upload them as one file. As Brenda said, she's our current webmaster. If you upload one bank statement and then try to upload another one, it will overwrite the first file. So put all those together as one file. Make sure your state filings are kept up to date. You can have your recording secretary help you with this, okay? Sometimes it gets to be a little much. It's like, oh my goodness, we have so much to do. There's part of these things, other people, if it's not handling money, you can have other members or other chapter officers help with it. And the recording secretary may be one of those that helps in this, as far as making sure that you are up to date with all your state requirements and the state agencies. On the national website, we have a reference to, let me pull this over here. If we go under chapter and department resources, on the website, you're going to scroll down and it says state income filing requirements by state. It's still under construction. We're always going to be updating this as new information becomes available, but you'll see we have the states listed. And if you click on your respective state, you will find the listing of Nevada, like for mine, Nevada registration and compliance, how to incorporate, where does the fee go? Some of these places are Secretary of States, some of them are Department of Taxation. So what we've done is at a national level, and you can thank Christine McCracken for this. She did the majority of the work on this. She was part of the finance committee and she pulled together these resources for us so that you know sales and use tax, who you need to register for. If you're doing charitable solicitations, does your Secretary of State need to know? What are the annual filings for your particular state? So I just show you that example to say that those are available on the national website by state. If you want your recording secretary to look into that, because, and the reason why I say recording secretary is she is going to have your charter. She's going to have access to your official name, and you want that to be consistent across everything that you register for. Okay. We're known as the Truckee Meadows Blue Star Mothers NV3, and there are so many different ways that that has appeared on bank statements, on state registrations, and everything else. So just please make sure that when you're registering for any of these agencies that you're keeping your name consistent. Okay. When at the end of the year, when the National Financial Secretary notifies Internal Revenue Service of all of the subordinate chapters that are authorized to be operating under the National BSMA umbrella, she puts in the official name that you were chartered with. So if donors want to go to the IRS website and make sure that you are a legitimate entity, they're going to be searching for whatever you present yourself out there as. And that needs to be the main name that you were chartered with, so that there doesn't end up being any confusion. There's also references to state agencies on the IRS website. If you go to irs.gov/charities-nonprofits/state links, they also have information there. Most of it will be redundant and not as extensive as what we have on the National BSMA site right now. Okay, that was a lot to cover. Questions and answers.
Okay, how about if I read you off what's in the chat, Julie?
Okay,
How's
we
that?
will turn this over. Diane, I need you to be a little bit louder.
Okie dokie.
There we go. So Diana and Jen, I'm going to let them possibly field a lot of these questions. Are there ones that came up that you think are going to be beneficial right now for the group of the moms that are on here?
One of the questions, and I believe it came up to the monthly reports for the chapters. Beautiful, whoever Beautiful is, I love that screen name, says, do we report checks that are out?
Checks that are out. If the check was written during the month and not just simply not cashed, yes, that would be one of your expenses for the month. Okay. You're going to record things as they're incurred, and money as it's received. So I believe, if I'm answering that question correctly, even though a check is outstanding, somebody hasn't cashed it, you're going to keep that in your monthly financial statement.
Jen, unmute yourself. There you go.
I'm undone. I saw one from Miss Anna McKeon. Can your budget be used as part of your year-end report? That would be where you get some of your numbers, but your budget should not show your actual, unless you're doing a budget to actual, does not show what you expended or didn't expend. You really need to report as a profit and loss what you actually brought in as income and what you sent out as expenses. Once again, under the financial policies area of the website is a sample of the P&L. And I know I've sent it to many of you over the last couple of years while I've been financial officer. And if you have any questions, I will gladly answer them.
And the beauty of TechSoup is you can go to their reports tab, and there they actually have a profit and loss report that you can print, and you can print it for a certain time period, whether it be for the month, for the quarter, for the current fiscal year, for the last fiscal year. And it's like lickety split, and it does all the math for you, as long as you've entered the stuff into QuickBooks correctly.
That's correct.
Okay, and while we're on QuickBooks, it says, is there a cost to TechSoup? The
No,
first,
as I said, there's not a cost to join TechSoup. There is a cost on any of the software or whatever that you're purchasing, but it's a reduced cost. Usually they have like an administrative fee. You will purchase the software through the TechSoup website. They give you an authorization code. Then you go to the main software site and you log in to purchase it, and you put the code in, and it shows that it's a reduced cost.
and the thing that you need to know before you go to the TechSoup site is you want to have your tax exempt number and other things, because they're going to ask you to set up basically an account, for lack of a better word. You have to be approved to be a purchaser. Anybody can't just go on there and buy anything. They vet it. Okay, so you have to allow yourself, the first time in particular, some lead time, because they don't do it overnight. You need to get on there, you need to establish that you're eligible, and then you can go shopping. But
Correct.
it's not like go on the site, put in the information, hey, I'm eligible, and then you go shopping. It doesn't work that quickly. Additionally, they actually do have more than just software. You can purchase some hardware through them also. So, you know, it's worth looking at. If your chapter is operating off of a desktop unit or off of a laptop, you want to have a physical thing and not deal with the cloud. The license for QuickBooks to get on your individual computer is $50. That's it. You know, which is, as if you bought software lately, that's a pretty good deal. I cannot tell you out of my head what the monthly fee is. So, but you can even get your antivirus software through them.
Correct.
I'd like to address Angela-Mia. She's asking if a financial officer needs to be reimbursed, do the other financial officer and first VP need to sign? In other words, treasurer cannot be one of the signatures on a check made to the treasurer. Best policy would say exactly that. In my own chapter, where I'm treasurer, if I have to have a check drawn for me because I had to use some of my own personal funds, I do make sure that the other two signers sign it. Julie, do you have any input on that?
No, that's fine. Basically, as long as you have your reimbursement form is filled out, you've got the receipt attached. If anything, maybe I would have the president approve that expenditure along with the treasurer, as opposed to just the two financial officers approving it. But yeah, if the first VP is available, that would make sense to have that person as the second signature on a check to one of the financial officers. All of it is just basically for your own protection, ladies. We don't want you being accused of misusing chapter funds. Are there other questions?
There's another question about, will you make this PowerPoint available? I'm recording it, and it is being recorded to the cloud, and hopefully it should be easy. We provide a link, and there you go. I'm not sure how we're going to disseminate that link yet, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we were thinking that we would make it available on the national website in the financial area. So at a minimum, we will put the PowerPoint slides up there in case something went wrong with the recording.
Here's a longer question. It's from Kazadama. I'm not sure. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. It says, when our chapter was formed, a home address was used. We are now using a post office box, but our bank will not accept a PO box as a permanent address. And also the post office required a street address. So what address should we use in those instances?
You gotta love them. They want a physical address.
Yeah, they do.
Sheesh.
Can they use the address of the place that they're meeting?
Only
Probably,
if you can get
well,
mail there.
I just say, yeah, unless they can get mail there, or if it's you know, like
No,
it's a
we
permanent
need
VFW post or something like
No,
that.
we meet at different restaurants. We've moved several times. We've moved our meetings several times due to changes in availability or whatever. So, you know, it's like, what do we do? What address can we use if we can't use
One question to you,
Sure.
what state are you in?
Pennsylvania?
Okay.
Oh.
The main thing is that they should allow, even if they want a shipping address, you know, permanent address, the permanent address of the chapter needs
It's a
to
PO
be
box.
what is, yeah, a PO box, basically
Right.
by our financial policies.
I'm from
That needs to be
Pennsylvania
the
as well.
permanent. If they're asking for a shipping address.
Well, no, they have to have a physical address.
Yeah, I'm from
Physical
Pennsylvania
address.
as well. I'm from
Ladies, let's not talk over each other. Let's take
Okay.
turns.
Yeah, just raise your hand or hit the raise hand button.
Oh,
The thing is, you can do it to the current financial secretary or the treasurer as a home address. The main thing is when those chapter officers change based on elections and they have to go into the bank to sign the signature card, they need to confirm that address then.
Julie,
Okay.
Yes, Diana.
one of our PNPs just sent me a text and said, at least on the national level, our physical address on the national level is our president's address.
Okay. Okay. That would probably, yeah. That'd be a
okay,
good example.
that's what we have then.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you,
Jen.
Miss Ann.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, do we have other questions we need to address?
Don't see anything else in the chat.
Okay, I got one question in through email, and it's from a brand new chapter. And so obviously they're small. They're just getting started. I believe they've got their 5 financial officers, so people are, you know, wearing additional hats. And they were basically asking if they have to have a finance committee, and if so, what are their responsibilities apart from what the secretary, the treasurer and financial secretary do. Obviously, it would be nice for every chapter to have a finance committee. But the finance committee is comprised of the president, the treasurer, the secretary, the financial secretary, and then just various other members from your general membership. This is appointed by the chapter president. Their goal is to be able to set the budget, propose a budget to the membership to be adopted, and then monitor throughout the year those expenses as to whether they are approved as part of the budget, or if they're outside the budget and need additional authorization or not. They can also review the chapter financial statements so that the financial secretary has a second set of eyes to look over things and go, well, is this really what this was for? Did it get misclassified? You know, I thought it was for this program, not that one, you know, or whatever. That being said, a lot of chapters do not have finance committees. And so that hat is worn and the responsibility is borne by the treasurer and the financial secretary. They get together and help propose a budget. They discuss it with membership, and it's approved or adjusted, amended, whatever. So you don't necessarily have to have a finance committee. It's nice to have additional people putting in their ideas and having an extra set of eyes to look over things. But again, the finance committee doesn't handle the money. Your treasurer and your financial secretary do. Also, that being said, it is not just your treasurer and financial secretary's responsibility to do the fundraising and, you know, all of the sponsorships and the grant applications and everything else. That can be, use the talents that are in your chapter, the various contacts that your moms have throughout the community. Let them seek out sponsorships for your chapter. Let them do grant applications and everything. At certain points in time, the financial secretary will have to help them because most grant applications ask for a certain amount of information regarding your chapter. The recording secretary would also have to be involved because your chapter president is the only one that can actually sign official requests or contracts, that type of thing. So a grant application would be reviewed by your financial officers and taken to the membership. Do we really want to apply for this grant? We've got all the work, you know, done, and the chapter president would sign it. So it really needs to kind of be a group effort. But if you've got a mom that's really good at, you know, organizing a golf tournament or whatever, and you're going to put her in charge of fundraising for that, by all means, let her do that. Just make sure that you've got your financial officers available for when money needs to start changing hands. If funds are coming in, your financial secretary needs to be receiving those and depositing them. If checks need to go out in organizing that event, by all means, your treasurer, you got to submit the right paperwork, and your treasurer will be writing the checks, and the financial secretary will be the second signature.
Okay, we have some
So
questions in the chat. One is, are we able to do paperless statements to save on fees? Yes, but you have to be able to download those files. Your members should see your bank statements, not just something you typed on a piece of paper that said, this is what we have in the bank. They should be able to physically inspect your bank statements. Plus, you'll have to be able to download them to a PDF on your computer, at least the August statement, for compliance. So that would be one. The next one is, when I order Gold Star banners, I use a chapter debit card. Do I need an email from the financial secretary approving the order? Jen, your financial secretary.
When Miss Vance orders something through her debit card, she sends me an email, and I normally will either call her and approve it or send her an email approved. That's how I do it. And that's how National Treasurer and myself do it. We do keep an ongoing record of these. If she's got a reimbursement report or request from a board member or somebody, she sends me a scanned copy of it. I print it off, sign it, scan it back to the finance chair and to her, and it goes through our regular payment schedule, through our bill pay at that point. In my chapter, the reimbursements are done basically the same way. The receipts are presented, and then the checks are written. We do not use bill pay.
And
ideally, you want to have a paper trail, meaning an email, something. It can be electronic, but it needs to be a trail that says this expense was authorized.
And here's the beauty of QuickBooks, ladies, because I will guarantee you, if I had to keep track of all these emails and try and sort through them to find something that matched with the transaction, or I was keeping paper copies, I would be buried. What you do is, when you put your transaction in QuickBooks, you have the ability to attach numerous things to any check, any deposit, anything. And so if you have, for example, when Jen and I do reimbursements, I attach that signed scan of the reimbursement approval along with any receipts that went with it right to that transaction in QuickBooks. So that if we have to go back and look at it, anybody can go back and look at it. It doesn't have to be in somebody's filing cabinet or in somebody's email. It's there. So you want to use QuickBook to your advantage. Julie, going back, someone asked about who exactly is responsible to do compliance.
The board.
Very good.
It needs to be done through the chapter profile. There are certain questions that the chapter president has to supply the bank signer's statement. The financial statements, yes, the financial secretary could provide those and just hand them off to the chapter president. But you've also got event matters. You're going to want to say how many Gold Star events you were in, how many veterans events you were in, how many care packages you sent off. There's a multifaceted part of compliance. So the thing is, ideally, if you can get your board together, bring all your information in September, October, and just sit down, log in online and gather it, because your recording secretary will have kept track of how many people showed up at events, how many hours they logged of volunteer service. Your financial secretary has your in-kind donations and your 990 compliance. Your president knows regarding other certain events that you participated in. It really needs to be a board activity to file that annual compliance.
Okay, we have another question about deposits, about how frequently we need to make deposits. And of course, a couple people answered already as soon as possible, which is probably it. But if you're only it sort of depends on how many deposits you get. I will tell you, the National Treasurer is making multiple deposits daily. On my
National Treasurer or
No,
National
Financial Secretary.
I'm sorry, said the wrong thing. I will tell you on the chapter level, you know, it really depends on how active your chapter is. In my chapter, we're sort of active, and I expect those deposits to be made at least weekly, because people have things that happen in their homes. You cannot be holding the organization's money in your homes. You could have a fire. Somebody could break into your house. God forbid you have a child that would steal from you. You could just mislay it, you know, something totally innocent, or, you know, your husband moves an envelope on you. So if at all possible, it needs to be put in a bank PDQ, especially if it's cash. So the idea of the money's all going to be turned over to the treasurer at the next chapter meeting and you're holding on to something for a month, that's not good practice.
The financial secretary, especially when we mentioned before, with online access available, with online access, we can get to it on our phones as well. The thing is, you can do mobile deposits if you receive things via check. So your financial secretary can scan those in and mark the check appropriately that it's been deposited and get those in right away. You can go by ATMs to deposit the cash. So ideally, you do not want to be holding on to those. The last thing you want, especially if it's check, is for your donors to come back and go, hey, I gave you guys a check 3 months ago. It didn't get cashed. What's the deal? And then moms are scrambling to figure out who received it and did they hand it over. So it just makes it a lot easier. As soon as you get something in your hands, you know, even if you're taking it to the bank and depositing it and you're afraid you might forget, take a picture of it. You know, put a note right beside it. This is the $100 that was given to me at the parade. Take a picture of it and then go deposit it. And then you've got your record to put in your financial records, but get it into the bank so that you don't accidentally spend it at the grocery store.
Another question is about QuickBooks. And they ask if it's shareable so others can look at it. Here's the deal with QuickBooks. There are different levels of QuickBooks that you can have.
No,
And
Mute other
it ain't,
people.
it ain't gonna happen.
guys, please mute yourself.
I don't, I keep telling her that because I can.
I think you can mute them, Diana.
Yeah, but I've got to go
Maybe
out.
she'll listen to you. Do I tell her, do not. I'm not bringing home, you see, you're gonna have to take care of him, you can't.
Yeah.
All right, are we good?
I think
All
so.
right, so, and now I have to get back. I had to go into a different screen, sorry. With QuickBooks, there are different levels you can purchase and about how many people can actually have access to it. There's a version where it's like just, it's one, you know, and
There's a
chapter
5
something.
user.
There's a 5
user,
user,
5
there's
user.
there's one that our board uses, it's even more. And in each one, you're gonna have somebody that's serving as an administrator, and that administrator can then set the permissions. So that, you know, obviously your financial secretary and your treasurer would have full access. But your president should not have full access. They should be able to see everything, but they should not be able to manipulate anything. So there's actually a little button you can push that says read only. As far as your whole chapter having access to QuickBooks, that's not practical. But quite honestly, if a chapter member had serious questions and they wanted to sit down and look at it with you, you really would be obligated to provide that to them.
Yep.
Because it's not just the board's money, it's
Right.
the chapter's money.
Exactly.
So, okay, let me see if there's any others in here because I thought I saw a couple more questions. I think we got to all the ones that were in the chat box.
Good. I say, if you have questions after this, I say, I appreciate your time. We've gone a little bit over an hour. I hope it's been beneficial to you. If questions pop into your mind afterwards, by all means, email one of us and we'll get those answers to you. I hope you can come to convention. We'll have the proposed new financial policies with a couple of changes in there. And we'll be available to answer questions there as well.
Could I add, Julie, just so people understand it, if you are concerned about membership, you probably want to start with the first VP. If you're concerned that a payment that you've made, a deposit that you've made, maybe you donated to VAVS or whatever, you want to go to the National Financial Secretary. If it's, I haven't got my due to chapters check back, or you guys sent us something for a name I don't recognize, or you have a problem with the online store, then that's the national treasurer. Sometimes people don't know exactly where to go. And it just makes it faster if you can go straight to the person that is a primary responsibility. Now that's not to say though, that for example, Jen and I go back and forth probably minimum of 2 times a week, if not more, sometimes every day, when problems arise and it's like, what do you know about this? But at least that gets you started with the right person. So
Can I say something? Can I say something regarding sending requests to the finance chair or to National Treasurer, National FinSec? If you're saying that you've got a check that you sent and you it hasn't been cashed and you don't know where it is, or even if it has been cashed, it would be kind of you to please send the check number, the date you think you sent it or deposit, that you need it, and the amount. Otherwise, we have spent hours, and I literally mean hours, looking for chapter deposits, chapter checks. And we don't even know where to start. If you give us a chapter, that helps, but an amount and a date and an approximate date of when you sent it would be wonderful.
Well, and it'll get you your answer faster.
That's true, because otherwise we start at square one, and we, between Diana and myself, we go all the way through and find everything we can for your chapter. So
The other thing you need to keep in mind is I'm on Eastern Standard Time and she's on Pacific. So we're coast to coast. So usually when we're talking to each other, it's at least 9 o'clock my time. And we often work past midnight. And so if we don't
both of our times we work past midnight.
If we don't get back to you like right away, keep in mind that there is a time difference. It's not that we're ignoring you. It's I have to wait till she gets off work. She has to wait till I get up.
Yeah, that's part of it. I do, a lot of you don't may not be aware, but I do work a full-time job on top
Diana,
of
there
this
seems to
full-time
be
job.
Diana, there seems to be Dee Bardo has a question, her hands raised, and so does Treva Majors.
I'm
So
looking.
you would need to unmute both of. Dee is driving, so.
I am driving. I'm sorry. I keep
That's
getting
okay.
kicked off because I'm going through Kentucky and I keep hitting the mountains. One of the compliance things, I'm the pro tem financial secretary for Missouri 4. And one of the things that I found with compliance, because we have such an active group, is I made a spreadsheet of all the questions that they ask. And every executive board meeting, we go through that list of what did we do? Did we send out how many boxes? Did we send out how many Gold Star banners did we present? And I have an Excel spreadsheet that I put together for that. I don't know if it'd be helpful for anybody, but Beth has access if anybody's interested in it, but it just kind of, the ones like us that are super active and have people going in different directions, that might be helpful. Just when it comes to compliance, then to try and go through, back meeting notes saying, okay, when did we do this and how did we do that and how much did we do? And
Exactly. That's a great idea. Thank you very much.
Julie, this is Brenda. Do you want her to send it to Webmaster so I can put it up on the finance page?
Yeah, if you could, and that way
That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful, and you could take out any proprietary information that maybe shouldn't be shared.
Dee, can you send that
Dee.
to Webmaster?
yes,
Please.
it'll probably be Tuesday or Wednesday before I get back, but if that's okay.
That's fine.
That's
Whenever
so
you can.
Thank you.
I need
Okay,
simple, so that was simple.
Great.
Travia, you're unmuted.
Okay, Treva.
Hey, I had a question about when we have, we received a grant because we moved to a new space for shelving and things for containers and things. How, is that something we depreciate like you would a vehicle? And is there how to do that on our website for nationals?
Do you own that equipment, or are they donating? Did they just donate it to you and you use it, but you're going to leave it in a specific space when you leave?
No, it was a grant, and the grant was if we move, we take it with us. To receive the grant is something, because we're in somebody else's building, we have to be able to take whatever we use it for with it. It can't be like built-in shelving or anything like that. So I was just wondering, okay, how do we, is that something we depreciate every year? How do you do that in your books as far as?
All right. Part of it would be the value of it. Is it over $1,000?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, then it would have to be depreciated over 5 years. And I would suggest doing straight line depreciation, which is just 20% a year. You write off that, and the accounts you would use as accumulated depreciation. Your asset would be the name of your asset, which would be shelving, and then yearly expense would be depreciation.
You can, go ahead and email finsec@bluestarmothers.us, and then you and Jen can talk at a convenient time, and she can walk you through how to adjust that on your records and
Okay.
everything.
Yeah.
It will depend on chapter preferences. There are IRS deductions that are allowed. Some chapters are going to want to automatic expense it through bonus depreciation. Some are going to want to keep track of it, like over the 5 years and everything. So Jen can explain that to you, maybe on a phone call or whatever, what the options are and what'll be easiest for your chapter. Okay.
And another one, sorry to keep you a little bit longer, but if people donate things that we cannot use, do we still have to claim the value of that? If it's something like we got a bunch of soap and some of it was kind of sketchy as far as it might be like 12 years old. So sometimes we get things that we cannot use or we can't send to our service members. I think we've talked about this before, but can we donate it? Does it have to be to a veterans organization? Some of it may need to go in the trash, and I don't mean to say that lightly, because we try to go through everything, but sometimes it's half open shampoo or half used that we don't want to ship to somebody. But do we still count the value?
Yes, you would still count the value. One of the things you can do though is as you go through it, if they donated something that is of no value and you're going to, it's expired food, the chips are stale, whatever, and you're just going to throw it away, then the value of what they donated was zero.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
So just go through it. There are times when you're going to get large size of things that's not going to really be appropriate to care boxes. You might be able to send it to a USO or whatever, or you're going to find a local, maybe homeless veterans center that could use those or whatever. You would take in the value of it, and then you would record the value of what you donated to them as a supply going out. So it would just cross your books. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, ladies, I think I'm going to thank you for this afternoon and this evening. Appreciate you all being here. We will try to get this up on the website as soon as possible. And that way, just pass the information along to your future financial officers as well. Just do hey, I was in a Zoom meeting in 2021, go on the website, take a look at it. We'll try to keep it up here for a while, and we may do these in the future. By all means, send us your questions. If we get a whole bunch of questions that warrant, another meeting in the future, maybe we have questions come up at convention, then we might do one of these, like 6 months or so from now. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Appreciate this. Bye.
Bye.